Here we go. Hello, my name is Katie Johnson. It is 11:04 a.m. on April 27, 2021. As of today, there have been 31,883,289 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the U.S., with 569,272 deaths. In Wisconsin, there has been 595,049 confirmed cases, with 6,756 deaths. 42.5% of the US has had one dose of a vaccine, and 28.5% of Americans have been vaccinated. So, hi, Jody. Can you introduce yourself, and do you mind sharing some demographic information about yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Jody Pabich. I actually live in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. I'm 52 years old. I'm a mother of a soon-to-be 16-year-old. I'm married. I'm originally from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Came to college and graduated many years ago from the University of Eau Claire with a psychology degree.
Yeah.
Currently, I am a senior safety manager for a big box retailer, and I've been doing that work for 5 years at this retailer, but I have previous 20 plus years at another retailer. And what else would you like to know?
So jumping right in, what are the primary things that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about what I do as a senior safety manager, and then if you want to know some personal things, I can go into that as well. But as a safety manager, as I'm sure you're well aware, COVID has been my life for since the very beginning. What I do for my company is that my job is to make sure all of our employees and customers stay safe. And so making sure they don't, doing my best to protect them from COVID has been a major, overwhelming part of my life for the past year and a few months. So I write all of the SOPs, or standard operating procedures, as it relates to safety for the company. I write trainings that our employees take in relation to injury prevention, all of that, but now also some COVID trainings that we had to write as well. I visit stores to make sure that the things that we develop at the corporate office are actually implemented out in the stores. I facilitate trainings with new general managers for our stores to make sure that they have a good understanding of safety. And I really collaborate with a lot of internal partners as well in relation to the merchandise displays that we put in stores, making sure that they are safe. If we have any kind of crisis in a store, like a fire or a flood or tornadoes or any of that, I'm involved with that work as well. So that's just a high level overview of what I do for my job.
Okay, awesome. So where do you live right now, and what is it like to live there, and how has that changed over the past 14 months or so?
So as I mentioned, I live in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, which is almost like a suburb of Eau Claire, right?
Yeah.
It's a nice small community. And how has it changed? Well, through COVID, we were home so much. And thankfully for me, we actually last year were able to, right when COVID kind of started, we bought a new house, which happens to be on a lake, on Lake Wissota in Chippewa Falls. So
yeah,
we were pretty lucky in the sense that, being on the lake, having a boat, allowed us to have some freedom and go out and not be cooped up all of the time. But certainly some of the things that we were used to doing, places that we would normally go, shopping, um, restauranting, all of that, because Chippewa Falls is just a great, unique place, and it has really, fun restaurants, fun bars, all of that. We really stayed home, and we really tried to avoid big gatherings so that we wouldn't get COVID. And my daughter was born with a heart condition. So she's considered a vulnerable person. And so as parents, we needed to be responsible. Even though we were feeling, might have felt safe, we certainly didn't want to do anything that would put my daughter at jeopardy. So a lot of things have changed. And then I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but schooling and all of that.
Yes, I will definitely family life and all of that.
Yes.
So when we first learned about COVID, what were your thoughts about it and how it would go and how long it would last and everything?
Yeah. So for my job, like if we had a case of measles in the store or tuberculosis, something like that, I was one of the people that would deal with that. And when you have something like that happen, you investigate it, you deal with it, and then you kind of move on quickly. And there was just so many unknowns with COVID. And I happened to be on call the week that things really started to change. And we were getting calls from employees that were really, really scared. And they didn't know what they didn't know, right? I touched something that I think someone has COVID. And, how do you make that person feel better? Should we overreact? What is the right thing to do? Because if you remember in the beginning, we didn't know how people caught it.
Yeah.
We didn't know if it lived on this coffee cup, or we didn't even know if the products that we were bringing in from China and all these other places, did you have to wipe down boxes that came off freighters? And so there was just a lot of misinformation. There was a lot of collaboration, I would say, at my workplace, just because we were all in the same boat. Nobody was an expert. Typically somebody kind of knows. You gather all your people together and somebody's usually like, well, I really know a lot about this topic. Nobody knew anything.
Yeah.
Everything we were getting was spoon-fed from the CDC. So, and it still was very gray. Okay, if someone in the workplace does have COVID, does that mean you need to shut down the facility right away? Does that mean everyone else is at risk? There was just so much unknown. So it was really quite a tumultuous time, I would say that. And then coupled with, you're trying to do what you need to do for work. And meanwhile, at home, everyone is really nervous too, right? Like your parents and your neighbors and your friends. And it was certainly, I'm not alone in that it was a very scary time. But frankly, in my job, I have to kind of be the voice of calm.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if I panic, everybody's gonna panic. So we have to just try to get the facts. And that's simply all we were really trying to do, is make the best decisions in the moment. And a lot of times we would err on the side of overreacting as instead of underreacting, because we never wanted to look back and say we didn't do enough.
Absolutely.
So that paints a picture of my mindset about a year and some odd months ago, March.
Yeah, exactly. So compare that to now. How do you feel now, and how have your reactions to it changed? How has your company's reactions changed? If you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, as sad as this is to say, I think we've got a rhythm, right? We have a way that we deal with employee cases. We have a way that we deal with sanitation and cleaning and
Mhm.
all of that we of course scrambled to figure out in the beginning. We've got kind of that down pat. We've had to deal with a lot of government agencies such as OSHA, health departments, mandates from governors saying you have to do this to operate your building. So I feel like it's never over, but we're certainly not over yet.
Yeah.
But there is a level of calm in how we deal with things. It's very, it's as strategic as it can be when things still change from the CDC, or, cases might go up for a week and then come back down. But we really are on kind of the downturn now. So things are much more calm. Things aren't, even as far as work, in the beginning, we got to get this done. People are freaking out. We got to have like instructions quickly. We've got to get masks quickly. We've got to get sanitizer in the stores quickly. Now it's kind of all baked out. At this point, what we're doing is we're following CDC. Is there anything maybe dial back on a little bit? And how do we, take the new guidance, follow mandates, be still in compliance with government agencies, but how do we kind of get back to a new normal? So that's kind of where we're at now, much more peaceful place.
Yes, absolutely. And then what issues have concerned you the most about the COVID-19 pandemic over the past 14 or so months?
What issues have concerned me the most?
Yeah, it can be related to your job, to your family,
Sure.
anything.
Sure. Well, I'll start with my family. I think my main concern, I've never felt concerned for my own self.
Okay.
For some reason, probably most people are like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I worry about my parents who are older. So I've worried about making sure that they don't get it so that they stay healthy.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned, my daughter, making sure she's healthy, COVID-free, but also mentally healthy, and being out of school and not being with her friends. For someone who is, she's an only child, so socialization's pretty important, and she's got a great social network. And thank goodness for phones right now, because the kids were pretty able to at least stay in touch. But making it not feel like it's the end of the world when all the scary stuff was happening, and being like trying to stay calm for your kid. It's kind of a heavy burden. And then on the flip side with work, I mean, my main concern was, were we going to be able to keep the company afloat in the crisis where we were having a lot of people sometimes in locations come out with positive diagnosis. And then I think too is just keeping the rest of the employees calm.
Yeah.
Because even if you have a positive case, there was still so much misinformation that everybody would freak out, even if they had no contact with someone. So there was just, trying to get the right information out there, keeping our employees safe, and then also making our customers feel like our stores were safe to go back in and shop.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if we weren't able to manage that, the company may not have survived. And that would affect the overall economy as well as my personal life, right?
Yes.
And many others. So
yeah.
A lot of concerns.
Absolutely.
A lot of concerns.
Moving on more towards your job, what concerns do you have about the effects of COVID-19 on your employment and the economy more broadly? So kind of going off your last point.
Yeah. Well, I feel as a safety manager, I never want to ever say I have job security, because you should never say that.
Yeah.
You should always they can always find someone else to replace you, right? But I think during COVID, safety managers as an industry has never been talked about more. So
Yeah.
in that regard, I think that the work that we did as a safety team was very well regarded and very needed. And I think we did a really great job. And even in our company, you know, meeting people that maybe I'd never even met before, but now they needed me to help them maybe write an SOP for their area of the business so that they could stay safe, you know, even if it was a little outside my wheelhouse. So, so I think I kind of lost my train of thought on the question that you asked.
The question was, what concerns do you have about the effects on COVID-19 on your employment and then the economy more broadly?
Yeah, and so I feel right now good about my employment. I'm not worried that all of a sudden safety managers are going to go away. So I feel like as an industry, we're probably in a pretty good place. As far as the economy goes, I'm feeling like things are on the upswing, but it was pretty scary there for a while when people weren't able to manage their own, if they owned a business or, you know, I don't like seeing other stores close. I don't like seeing any restaurants close. That's scary to me. That's scary to me. So while I'm feeling like I'm valued at this time, certainly I'm well aware that our economy has been a little bit shaky.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the employment of people that you know?
Yeah. I think I have quite a variety of people in different types of work. I know, I mean, some of my friends are in manufacturing, some are in car businesses, some are teaching. And quite honestly, I think for the most part, most of my circle of friends has made it through COVID. Either their business was booming or it was still okay. Yeah, so I feel like my experience hasn't been with people really losing their livelihoods. But I know that may be unique.
Yeah.
There certainly are a lot of people that are losing their livelihoods out there.
Yes, hopefully they
rebound.
Get them back soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then moving on to family and household. So how are you managing day-to-day activities in your household, like going to school, doing sort of clubs or sports that you used to do, stuff like that?
Yeah, so, you know, if this interview was 6 months ago, it would be a different interview, I think, because right now my daughter is going to school 5 days a week. So she is doing in-person learning, which is wonderful. She is an athlete. She plays basketball, and they were able to play basketball with masks on. It was an abbreviated season. Of course, we couldn't have, you know, all the grandparents and everybody else there anymore for spectating. So it was really a different environment watching the kids play basketball when it's only just us parents on the sidelines cheering. But I'm just so grateful that she was able to play. I think sports for the kids is just so super important for them to be able to get out and do things. But you know, 6 months prior, that was not the case. And my daughter was in school at home, and that was difficult. I would be here working away on my laptop because I've been working from home since the pandemic began. My husband would be here. He's self-employed, but you know, his winter months based on his employment are kind of slow, so he'd be lingering around. And then my daughter would be doing her schoolwork in her room. So it definitely was different. But now things are a little bit back to normal. My husband's working more because he just has this cyclical job where spring, summer, fall are busier for him. So he's out of the house more. She's in school. But it is new for me to be working from home. I have personally found that I absolutely love it.
That's
I
good.
love working from home. I loved being in the office too, but I feel like I get more done at home because I don't have as much interruptions. I'm a little bit of a chatty Cathy, so I will, if there's people around, I'm gonna want to talk to them, but when I'm home working, it's just me and the dog, so.
There you go. It's
So,
nice to
yeah.
have dogs. Okay, and then has the COVID-19 outbreak affected how you associate and communicate with friends and family?
Yeah, for sure. People are getting vaccinated right now, and I'm sure we're going to get to that
Yes.
question in a bit, but that certainly is opening some doors. There were friends that and family that we haven't seen in over a year because of their own concerns too about COVID, about seeing people in person. I have several friends I have not seen in a year and a half because of their concerns. Maybe they have a child or whatever that they're concerned about. So we've done, instead of in person, we've done happy hours where we're on Zoom calls like this. I think it's important to just try and connect, whatever that looks like, just so everybody knows that we still love each other and we're still here for each other. I will say we have a group of friends that live by us that we kind of like, okay, you're in our bubble, right? You're in our bubble. So, but still, I'm not going to be hugging you, and we're going to be still sitting apart because regardless of, I'm aware that you might stray from the bubble and go to someone else's bubble. So just being cautious, avoiding huge gatherings, and just trying to be smart about when we do get together. Are we sitting outside by campfire, or if we're all in my kitchen, which is very small, maybe we don't have the same number of people coming over that we used to. So I think we were really trying to be, and still are trying to be, pretty cautious.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask
So we
about
get the green light.
Yeah. I was going to ask about the pod or like the bubble thing. Is it like a conscious decision that you made, or was it just kind of like, oh, we all live together, let's all make our own sort of thing?
I'll tell you, the bubble that we had was more around like my daughter's friends that she would go to school with and play basketball with. And typically those are kind of our friends that we hang out with anyway. And so kind of, we would make that exception. Well, we're going to get together with them because, we know they had COVID, or we know that they're being responsible and they're not hanging out somewhere where they shouldn't hang out all the time. And we would joke about it. I don't think we sat down and said, who's in our bubble?
Yeah.
But it just ended up being like kind of the same people all the time. And then you kind of go, well, you're in my bubble.
Mm-hmm.
You're in my bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what have been the biggest challenges that you have faced during COVID-19 in regards to your family and friends?
Well, we are, quite honestly, I mean, I'm a very social person. We tend to host a lot of people over to our house.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't able to do that. That's kind of sad. I think we were kind of the gathering place for friends in the past, and not extending that invitation, or just saying, you know what, we're gonna pass. There were plenty of times where some of our friends are like, we're gonna go to an event or a bar or whatever it is, and I'm like, I'm not comfortable. I just, first of all, how's it gonna look to my work people if I'm the one that gets, because I'm not following what I'm preaching to other people to do.
Yeah.
So there was kind of this moral dilemma, especially if there were things going on, a wedding, funerals, things like that. Not say that that's any kind of fun to go to, but
Yeah.
but certainly people had birthdays, some people still had gatherings, right? And well, we'll stay 6 feet apart. Well, sometimes they're not. And
Yeah.
so having to turn those things down and telling my daughter she couldn't do things. There was like slumber parties and things that kids were still having. And I get that, you want to go and be part of it, but I'm not comfortable with 6 of you being together right now. So
Yeah.
just say no and not be part of it.
Absolutely. And then what have you and your family done for recreation to like get out of the house or do something new while we've been on lockdown?
Well, we have been extremely blessed. And like I said, we just bought this house that's on the lake. And that was huge because we have a dock, so we can just sit outside and sit by the water, at least in the summer anyway. Winter was a little more challenging.
Yes.
But we really have been doing more things outside. And if we're not boating, we have had more campfires even in the winter than I would have ever thought, because I'm usually not about sitting outside, but if it meant that we could have a couple people over, and even though we're outside in the cold around a fire, it still kind of made it worth it. So, and my husband fishes. He fishes in the boat. I read in the boat, or I just sit there and hang out. So that's some of the things that we just try and be outside and go for walks, and so those are some of the things that we've done. And we do have we haven't done a lot of it yet, but we also bought a ATV just to ride around.
That's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why nobody can buy recreational vehicles, because everybody is doing those kinds of things. What can we do to entertain ourselves when I'm away from people? Okay, well, let's buy some more stuff.
Exactly.
All these places are booming because of people like me.
You got to do something fun outside now.
Yeah.
Space out again.
Yes.
All right. And then moving on to more questions about your community. So how has the COVID-19 outbreak affected your community that you are in all the time? Or what you define as your community, whatever that means.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably like most other communities, I feel like, I was watching the news daily, right? And then you would get the health department gal that would, give the updates, and you're kind of like, okay, well, are we on the increase? So I was also kind of, just really interested in how Chippewa Falls was doing.
Yeah.
Even more so than Eau Claire, because I'm like, well, we're really staying in Chippewa Falls for the most part, even though they're 10 minutes apart.
Yeah.
But Chippewa Falls, I was worried. There were a lot of businesses that had to close because of COVID, or temporarily closed because of COVID. And I had a friend that ran a restaurant, and he was doing everything to try and get new people in, and the delivering. I mean, I will say, my goodness, what a wonderful thing that you can go pick up your Olive Garden now, or I mean, car side to go for everywhere.
I hope that sticks around. It makes everything so easy.
I do too. So, I mean, that actually, while I miss going in a place, I mean, we're all about the going and getting our food, and checking out who has delivery, because even better yet, you don't have to leave and go get it. They can bring it to you. So
exactly.
Yeah, we actually tried different restaurants that we hadn't even tried before. And frankly too, I want these places to succeed too. So, I'm happy that Chippewa Falls has really rallied, and, I'm not aware of a whole lot of businesses that have closed permanently. So hopefully they all start to really rebound here as things get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how are people around you responding to the pandemic, or have you noticed any changes in how the public response has been in Chippewa Falls?
I think I feel good about how Chippewa Falls has responded to the pandemic, and I do feel like people took it seriously. I see a lot of masking going on, and still see a lot of masking going on. But in my work, not that you asked, but I'm going to share,
Okay.
I'm quite horrified by some of the responses that I see in other areas of the country where people are just becoming violent about, we're asking you to wear a mask because my company is still, we are asking our customers to wear a mask, and we're not doing it in a way that's confrontive. We're not doing it in a way that's like, you can't come in if you don't have a mask, but even just asking someone to wear a mask. And the sheer response from some people is baffling to me, that they take it as a personal affront, they take it to the political side, they become violent, they are belligerent, and it just makes me sad that that still exists, and we're seeing a lot of that still, and that to me is the ugly part of what this pandemic has brought. I mean, it has become very political, and it's really sad because we're all in the same boat together. Nobody wants to wear the mask, but I don't know anyone that's like, yeah, I love wearing this mask. No, none of us want to wear it, but we're trying to protect the other person. And yet there are people that are just like, not doing it. I don't want you telling me I should do it, and I'm never going to come to your store again. And by the way, bleep, 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 bleep. And so it's, I worry about our employees because there's just a lot of people on the fringe of their last nerve. And it's really turned into a lot of workplace violence, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
I feel like Chippewa Falls has been rock stars.
That's good. That's good to hear that. Have you seen the people around you change their opinion, day-to-day activities, or relationships in response to the pandemic?
So can you repeat that?
Yeah. Have you seen the people around you change their opinion or day-to-day activities or relationships in response to the pandemic?
Some, yes. Yes, I think everybody changed their, most people changed what they did, right? In some fashion or another. Now people are kind of getting back to a new normal in some way. And some people are over it.
Yeah.
When you talk about opinion, I think there are some people that maybe were religious about wearing their mask. They were staying home, and the COVID-19 fatigue is a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of people that are just like, I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm done wearing my mask. Or I got COVID, so I'm good. Or I'm vaccinated, so I'm good. I'm not going to wear my mask anymore.
Yeah.
And then I do have one friend that I haven't seen in a year and a half, is still deathly afraid. Deathly afraid, to the point where I'm worried about her level of fear of it, because we should all be have a healthy fear of it.
Yeah.
But it's almost immobilizing for that person, and that's the underlying evil of this whole thing, right? It's really taking a toll mentally on a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then self-isolating and flattening the curve have been two key ideas that have emerged during the pandemic. Your friends, your family, and your community responded to the self-isolation and the flattening the curve sort of ideas.
Yeah, so I think when this was hot and heavy, right, was last summer, fall, right, when we were all like, all right, if we just all stay home, let's just all stay home, mind our P's and Q's, stay home. We can flatten this curve. We can stop that spike from happening because, it did seem pretty clear that when people weren't masking and were getting together in groups and not staying 6 feet apart, that the numbers just kept climbing, right? So I believe the science. I was all about Dr. Fauci, listening every single day, to what he was saying. And so we did self-isolate, for when they, especially there was like a 2-week period where like everybody just needs to stay home for 2 weeks. And we did. We were good about that. And I really do think that helped. And, it didn't get rid of it, but it's certainly kind of, I think, because the whole point of this is how I live, flattening the curve is to give those poor hospitals a break.
Yeah.
They couldn't manage all of the influx of patients they were seeing. So I definitely feel like we did our part in trying to, as a family, to try and get to that flattening of the curve.
Yeah, absolutely. And then has COVID-19 changed your relationships with any family, friends, or your community?
I definitely have some people in my friend group and in my family that, more so my friend group, that just have never really bought into it.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of what I can tell them about, yeah, it's real. That's all I've been doing. I've talked to people who are sick. I know people who are sick. Just still had some distrust about what we were being told from the media. And of course, there was some politicalness to it all. Now, I'm on Facebook, and the swill on Facebook, I personally, I've maintained it's not like I cut anyone off from my friends or family that has a differing opinion. Mm-hmm. However, I just don't hang out with them as much. And if I don't like what they're saying on Facebook, I just make them go away for 30 days. Exactly. What they're saying, especially during the election time when it was really, really bad. Yeah. I would have, it's called putting them to sleep for 30 days or whatever. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say it destroyed any friendships or any relationships, but it's certainly, you would know, this person, I can't even talk to them about what I'm doing right now because they just think it's all a bunch of hooey. Yeah. So yeah, but the majority of people understood the seriousness.
That's good. And then as someone who lives constantly basically in Chippewa Valley, did you have any worries or anything about the amount of kids that would be coming back to college in the fall or back in February when we came back for spring semester?
You know what, no, I didn't. I felt very comfortable. I think hats off to the school administrators across Wisconsin for sure. I really feel like they did a good job in balancing, the remote and then the in-person part of it. And I mean, I certainly felt sorry for any student, especially those freshmen going to college for their first time and maybe having to start off remote. I mean, what a bummer, right? Because for me, college was just an awesome time. I loved every minute of it. Yeah. Not all the homework, but the fun of it. And but I wasn't worried. I know kids come from all over, but that wasn't something I worried about. Was, oh gosh, there's people coming from all walks of the country and they could be bringing COVID. No, that didn't cross my mind, not honestly.
All right. I apologize if you hear any sort of buzzing. My computer fan just kicked on, so
that's okay.
It gets or anything, but all right. So now moving on to like the health aspect. Have you or anyone gotten sick due to COVID-19?
Yes. Yes. My stepmom actually got COVID and got it pretty bad. My dad got COVID, but said it was like a really bad cold.
Okay.
But she, my stepmother has MS, and so kind of kicked her butt. It was, made her, she never ended up having to go to the hospital,
Good.
and she's a nurse by trade. So, we had many discussions of, when you need to go to the hospital, right?
Yeah.
Don't put it off. She is probably one of the ones closest to me that got the most sick.
Okay.
But otherwise, I had several people get COVID, but just
Mhm. Yeah. And then what ways do you think that COVID-19 is affecting people's mental and physical health?
a lot. The mental thing is so they're two very separate things, right? I think, so let's just talk about the physical side. So my stepmom still has a chronic cough. There's people that are the long haulers, right, that can't quite shake some of the symptoms, or they still can't get their sense of taste back.
Yeah.
I worry about what you can't see,
Mhm.
what it might have done to someone's heart or lungs that we might not know for years.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's a lot of unknowns still around COVID and long-term effects. Mental health, I think, is at an all-time high. Either we're more aware of people's mental health challenges, which could be too. We talk about it more, but I certainly think the COVID, isolation, fear, all of those things. I mean, for people with anxiety, it's fuel to a already burning fire.
Yeah.
So I am concerned with people's mental health. I'm concerned about the people that don't say anything. I thankfully there's people who do speak up, and hopefully make it easier for others to speak up. But it's no secret that mental health, for many years, to talk about your mental health was a shameful thing, and it's just not widely it's more widely discussed now than it ever has been before, which is a blessing, and quite frankly probably saves a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
In the fact that hopefully more people are more comfortable talking now than they ever have before. But think about my friend that is still so fearful, and I mean, it's like it triggered something in her that I don't think maybe existed before. So it's a bad disease that it's really messing with people's mental health.
Yeah. And then do you mind talking a little bit about what you saw with your daughter and how she used social media during the pandemic?
Yeah, sure. Well, she's a big social media person anyway. As far as, of course, she's not on Facebook or any of the things that the old people are on. The Snapchat and
Mhm.
and who knows what else that I'm probably not aware of.
Yeah.
But in a good way. She's one of I feel good about what she's doing. I trust her. But I think I hope that's not famous last words. I trust everything she's doing on social media. I think it's really, they're constantly talking to each other. Her girlfriends constantly talking to each other, and she's just got a great group of friends.
That's good.
And to me, I think for right now, for her, I feel like social media has been a bit of a blessing through the pandemic. I think there's a lot of absolute crap on social media too, which can get you in that mental bad space. But I really don't think, I think for her, she's using it for the good, for somebody vulnerable, it could be a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so for the vaccine, have you or does anyone you know have questions or concerns about the vaccine or any of the vaccines?
That's a good question. So, yes and yes.
Okay.
I just went and got the vaccine myself. My husband and I both, and we got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Oh,
So that was prior to, like, 4 days later, watching the Today Show where they said, "Oop, they're halting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine." And you know, even myself, I was like, well, that's great. So now that's in me forever.
yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie, of course, it gave me a little anxiety, you know, now learning why they put the pause on, and the rational part of me is like, okay, you know,
Yeah.
I probably do riskier things, you know, like driving my car, right?
Yeah.
And I can get in an accident, and if something happens with the vaccine. But I have family members and friends who are adamant that they are not going to get the vaccine because they feel like it alters their DNA. They don't know what all's in it. So again, a big mistrust on how quickly the vaccine was came to fruition, but also just a distrust of putting something in your body, right? And then what does that mean in 20 years? I mean, even I have thought about, what does this mean in 20 years for me? Nobody knows. I mean, I'm just gonna hope it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going on a little bit of faith.
Exactly.
Now, if you ask me if I am not at this point convinced I'm gonna get my daughter vaccinated. I'm just a little nervous about it. I'm like, well, let's see how I do.
Yeah.
You know, let's see what my husband does. Let's give it a little bit before I just rush and get her a vaccine. You know, and she has that heart condition. So I'm kind of like, I don't want to give her anything that, I don't know. So I'm probably misinformed too at this point and don't have all the, you know, proper information, but that's what. And there's a lot of mistrust going on right now with the vaccine. And I don't think the Johnson & Johnson little pause helped matters much. Nothing against Johnson & Johnson. I mean, and it didn't really help too that you need 2 vaccines. You know, because now people are like, I got the first one, now I'm not so sure I want to get the second one because the first one made me sick, or the second one is gonna make me more sick. So there's a lot. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes. Yeah. And then since you got the vaccine, did you notice any like side effects? And then what was your process for like signing up for appointment and going and getting it done?
So as far as side effects, I had just a slight headache that I don't even know if it was from that or just life, right? And that was probably like 3 days after I got the vaccine.
Wow.
My husband, the night after we got the vaccine, he had kind of a bad headache, but then the next day it was gone.
Okay.
So that was it. So we, I think, came out pretty good on that end. And then what was the second question?
What was your experience like signing up for the vaccine, going to get it done, being there and getting the shot?
So I was a little confused with how Wisconsin was allowing people to get vaccinated, because I also talked to people who live in different states, and it was different in Minnesota than it was in Wisconsin. And I felt like I kind of wish my doctor would have reached out to me and said, okay, you're good, you can come get the vaccine or the vaccination. But really it's left to the patient to figure out how and where to sign up. And I just happened to go on my clinic website, and then it finally said now taking appointments for the COVID-19 vaccine, but it hadn't said that And so I was like, do I need to go to a like Zorn Arena and get my
Yeah.
shots? I mean, I don't think that was great. I think, and then when I got the shot, making the appointment through my clinic, easy peasy, fabulous.
Okay.
That went super smooth. The gal called us, got our information, made the appointment the next week, and then we got it and we were good. It
Okay.
was just kind of the not knowing how to sign up and where you
Yeah.
should do it. Should I get it through my clinic, or can I go to a different clinic, or I go to Zorn Arena or wherever they were doing a little bit of more math. So that was a little confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot out there on who can get it here and is it this time. Absolutely. And then moving on to some stuff about government. How have municipal leaders and government officials in your community responded to the outbreak?
In my community, I think fine and appropriate.
Okay.
In other communities, because I deal with this for work,
Yeah.
government mandates and health departments doing one thing, the governor's saying a different thing. And California is a great example. California is crazy.
Mhm.
No offense to anyone from California that might watch this in the future, but the governor is saying that here's what an outbreak is.
Mhm.
And then the health department said, no, we think an outbreak is actually 3 cases or
Oh.
2 cases, and things don't match, and everyone's trying to be the hero and do their own thing. And it's quite honest. I mean, we didn't have a national across the board expectation or mandate. So because of that, every state was left to their own devices. And then every county decided to do their own thing. Now, thankfully, I think what was happening in Eau Claire and Chippewa County was appropriate and everything was pretty smooth. But dealing with some of these counties and states across the country, it was quite messy.
Yeah. And then
difficult to interpret. Very difficult to interpret.
Yeah. When you were trying to figure out stuff for your company, did you have like a set sort of rules that you did? Like you always go with the most severe guidelines or something like that? Or was it just case?
That is a great question. So for the most part, there were some areas of the country that were more strict, like Oregon is very strict, California is very strict, New York was very strict. So we did try to implement things that would satisfy the most strict. Now, if something was like ridiculous, like I'm going to give you an example. New Mexico said close contact is me and you within 6 feet for 3 minutes. And the rest of the country is 15. And the CDC is 15, but New Mexico decides 3 minutes. Well, we're not going to roll that. When we talk about contact tracing, which we were involved in, and we're not going to roll that out nationwide because but we did have to roll it out in New Mexico. So, so when it was really severe and really off the norm, we would comply with where that was mandatory, but then we didn't roll that out to everyone. So,
yeah.
I'm pretty lucky that we have a government affairs team at my business. So they really, and a legal team, and they read the mandates and they read the fine print. It says must or it says should. There's a big difference between must and should.
Yeah.
Some is guidance, some is you have to. So just reading through all of that and then making sense of what does this mean now for the stores and what do we have to do and what should we do? And sometimes we would, even on the should we would do it because we felt like it was the right thing to do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then do you have any thoughts on how local, state, or federal leaders are responding to the crisis differently?
I just wish we had a consistent message.
Mhm.
across the country. I just think that there is too much room for certain states who would say, no, we're not going to do this because we don't believe in it. And then other states are like, no, we're going to do this. And plus, we're going to recommend you do this. And I just think, I thought that was weird from the beginning, that we wouldn't do things the same as a country. I
Mhm.
get that everyone's, Wyoming is different than Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Wyoming's different from any other state, right? Because of the open spaces. So part of me understands why we can't have a cookie cutter approach, but I also think that having it be a free for all was really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then looking towards the future, has your experience with COVID-19 changed how you think about your family, friends, and community?
Yeah, I mean, I do think so. I think it makes you value things more.
Mhm.
I think as a person, I'm trying to not take people for granted, luxuries for granted. Uh, you even talk about people losing their employment. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I do what I do and I work for the company I work for, and I've been blessed. So trying to just and live in the moment. I'll be honest with you. I'm like booking trips right now because I'm like, you know what? This life is short. This life is short, and you don't know nobody knew this was going to happen,
Yeah.
and it uprooted everyone's lives, everyone's plans. And you know what? Why wait until, for me, I'm 52, right? I'm getting up there, but why wait for retirement? I mean, why not do the things you have been dreaming about, traveling or whatever? And even when I talk to my daughter, I'm like, girl, if you want to do something when you're in your 20s, go for it. Do
Yes.
it now. Don't wait until you think it's the right time, because quite honestly, something else could derail you, and you
Yeah.
might not
As
have.
someone in my 20s, I second that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go climb a mountain, go climb that mountain. You want to jump out of the airplane, jump out of the airplane. I'm as scared as your brother, but I also think, yeah, you just don't know what's around the corner. And not that you should live in fear. That is not what I'm saying, but I do think we should all embrace things more. We should embrace good friendships. I think too, like some of those people that maybe you're hanging around with that weren't that great,
Mhm.
eh,
Yeah,
they don't need to spend that much time with you anymore.
absolutely.
Prioritize friendships, prioritize,
Yeah.
what you want to do to have a meaningful, enjoyable life.
Yeah. And then knowing what you know now, what do you think individuals, communities, or governments need to keep in mind for the future?
Well, I think out of COVID, there are some things that we are doing now that may not be a bad idea to keep doing. So I don't want to wear a mask forever for sure. Like
Mhm.
we can do away with that. But you know what? Maybe it's not a bad idea at cash registers to have a piece of plexiglass in between you and the other person. People are kind of like, when you're at a buffet and you have the sneeze guard. I'm okay with that sneeze guard being there.
Yeah.
It's protecting your spit or, respiratory droplets from getting on. And if you think about flu and colds and just our norm, right? We're always catching colds, but nobody was catching colds. Nobody's catching
Yeah.
flu. The flu numbers are way down. Well,
Yeah.
because, number one, we're all staying away from each other, but we are doing some things that are protecting. So I'm not in favor of everyone standing 6 feet apart or anything like that forever. But I also think some of those protective things that we did might not be so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, not masks though. I'm ready to be done with masks.
I understand that one. And then that's all the questions I had. Is there anything that I didn't address that you wanted to talk about?
No, you really hit on almost everything I think of as it relates to COVID. you know, I think this is really cool what you guys are doing as far as archiving. Maybe someone 100 years from now can watch me and hopefully not make the same mistakes we did, but learn from it a little bit. I just think it's a cool project that you guys are working on. And I'm flattered that I was asked to participate. So thank
Yeah, of course. Thank you for taking time to contribute to our archive.
you. You are so welcome, Katie.